So with every decision we make to seek out advantages, there's almost like an equally balanced disadvantage that comes with it. I set all my hives out into the spring yard this year for many reasons. I'm losing my available spring yards to things like land development and inaccessibility. I just couldn't get into some yards this spring. And public complaint. I realize that springtime bees, when I set them out before the bees actually can go out and forage for natural pollen, they'll fly and kind of linger within yards, especially within farm yards or residential yards, because it's a little bit warmer in there and they're looking for food and they smell, they think they smell food, so they're attracted to activity and they become a real nuisance. So I get a tremendous amount of complaint in the spring about my bees bothering people, not so much being nasty, just bothering people. And I recognize that and I take it very seriously. So I try to locate my yards away from people just so they're not as much of a nuisance. And this is where this yard come in very handy. It's so the specific yard I put my bees down into here is on the escarpment. It's nicely situated. It has a bit of a heat sink, beautifully protected from the northwest. Somewhat accessible. I was able to get in here to drop all my hives without getting stuck. So it provided me a huge advantage. The disadvantages from this site, because dropping all the bees into one spot here, you know, drift becomes an issue. I haven't seen too much drift, but there's a little bit. Robbing is going to become an issue as these hives get out and, you know, are more aggressive on their foraging. I haven't seen any robbing yet, but we're very close to that. And the problem with this yard is it's exposed from the southwest. We don't get many southwest winds, but last night, like even right now, we have a 50 click wind and it's a cold breeze on the back of these bees. So I have to get these hives, you can notice it's kind of open, so they're exposed directly to this cold wind, and it, you know, as a beekeeper I can just feel the chill. So I gotta work hard to get these hives out. I'm gonna scatter them amongst my sheltered summer yards, most places I can get to now, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit to natural pollen. We don't have a bit of pollen coming in yet, so we're likely a week away from that. Hope sooner than that. But so I'm going to push the limits a little bit and just hope Miami understands the need for me to get my bees out into these areas, to set them out and get them ready to jump on this pollen as soon as it comes available. But I'll be leaving roughly 300 hives behind. They're not dead. They're just small. They might as well be dead. It'd be an easy decision. But they're small, and spring is a tough time of year for me. We put so much time and energy into these bees. We set these hives up in the fall. We put a tremendous amount of time into them. These hives went into winter in terrific shape. So then we have these small ones coming out, and what do you do with these guys? I mean, you don't want to shake them out. We put so much time into them. We want to give them a chance, but you know, the odds are stacking against them. So what do you do? And it's tough for me because it's a direct result of failure. And this business is just, you're just influenced with failure, and it's really hard to get through. But what I do, and I know it's tough for a lot of beekeepers too, is very demoralizing, but what I do to get through this patch is you pick up all the good ones. You know, the ones that I marked as mediums and strongs, I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick up those good ones. I'm going to take them to my summer yards. Those yards, when we go through with their work, they're going to look terrific, because that's what they are. They're terrific. I have a tremendous amount of success in this apiary right now. Just I got to remove the failure from it. And then after I get all my good hives moved out into the countryside, where we can manage them accordingly, we can focus on those hives, and then I can come back to these smaller type hives, and I can put the certain amount of attention they need to maybe keep them going or to promote their success, because they're not dead yet. They have potential yet. They could come back, just depending on what the weather does here. I know I have good queens. These hives have tremendous queens. I just got to give them a chance here. And then we can reassess them later on. You know, merge a bunch of hives together just to help promote one good hive, or you know, cut my losses and shake out the real bad ones. It just allows me, when we go through, it just allows me to identify the successes in the operation, and it allows me to identify the failures in the operation and manage them accordingly. And it allows a guy to get out of that spring, you know, almost like a rut. I know a lot of beekeepers fall into this rut. You're faced with, you know, there's 1,200 hives here. You got 300 that look terrible, and those seem to be the ones that we dwell on all the time. So if we're able to get ourselves away from those and focus on the brilliance and get ourselves back into that beekeeping spirit, and then when we have time, influence a bit of our work, because we're really good at what we do, back onto those smaller hives to bring them back to life, to either rejuvenate them or just cut losses and deal with it. So anyways, that's kind of how I manage my spring. I dread spring every year because you're faced with truth. And Mother Nature can be a bitch. It doesn't matter how much time we seem to put into this or how much care or energy. There is that day of reckoning where you have to realize that we are somewhat completely out of control in this business. Keep those hives moving forward. Develop these hives into units which will make us money. That's one trend I'm finding with most of these smaller type hives, is they tend to be older queens. Expecting they shut down a little bit earlier in the fall, resulting in a bit of a smaller nest. I would have had an absolutely tremendously successful spring if I had these bees out 3 weeks earlier. It's just some of these hives run out of time. But anyways, that's what we're going to be doing. I have a crew of 4 people on Monday, which is tomorrow. So I got to get those guys pointed in the right direction, and we got a pile of work to do. I just got to be able to delegate the work out to be able to get this work done. So this next week, I'm going to be focusing on making sure I got these guys trained properly, getting my work done, and moving forward.